The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. Yeah!
Hi, and welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. Today I'll be joined by chemistry expert Bob Lowry. We're going to go over pool filtration and also some reasons why your pool water may be cloudy. And Bob Lowry is a highly respected chemist in the pool industry. He's been in the pool industry for over 45 years. He has a pool chemistry training institute. You can learn more about this at pcti.online. Again, that's pcti.online. And from this website, you can find his books and also his certified residential course that you can sign up for. It's an online course that will get you certified for residential pool service. Pool Service Pro. Open a Leslie's wholesale account today and receive wholesale pricing on products you use every day. Leslie's Pool Supply offers convenient locations that are open 7 days a week. Another great benefit of opening a Leslie's wholesale account is Leslie's referral program. Get referred to a customer looking for weekly pool service. Also receive priority service, enhanced rebate programs, a discount on your general liability insurance through SPA, a discount on your pool routing software through Skimmer, and an opportunity to co-brand with Leslie's on your social media, website, truck, and more. Save time and money and grow your pool service route and become a Leslie's Pro. I'm joined today by Bob Lowry, and of course he is the premier chemistry expert in the pool industry. How are you doing today, Bob?
Doing great. Welcome and hi from Lima, Peru. It's about 27 degrees, which is something like about 85 or so in my office.
Okay, not bad. So let's just jump in here. We'll talk about some other factors that affect pool chemistry. And I know that a lot of the times we focus on the chemistry of the pool, but there are other factors of your pool. So let's go over the importance of runtime of a swimming pool. How important is it to run your pool a certain amount of time every day?
Well, I think it's really important to run the pool long enough every day so that you at least get, bare minimum one turnover. But what we'd really like to see is 3 turnovers in your pool. And a pool turnover is the gallons in the pool. How long does it take to go through your pump? And if you're pumping at 50 gallons a minute, which is 3,000 gallons an hour, and you've got a 15,000 gallon pool, it takes 5 hours if you're pumping at 50 gallons a minute. To have 100% filtration, we need 3 turnovers. If we have 2 turnovers, the filtration rate is about 85%. And if it's only 1 turnover, we're actually only getting about 65% of the water filtered. The goal, of course, is to have it all filtered. But because the filtered water mixes with the unfiltered water, there's no way to just run it all through the pump and put it back. It mixes in when we fill it, when we return it to the pool. So the best of all worlds is to get 3 turnovers. So if you have a 15,000 gallon pool, we need to get 45,000 gallons of water through that pump. And based on flow rates, you can figure out how long you need to run your pump. And it changes because we used to have single speed pumps. And with a single speed pump, you pump the same amount of water all day long. And now with variable speed pumps and electronic timers and so on, we have high speed for a while, slow for a while, and medium maybe for a while. And so the pump may be running nearly all day, but it's not running at 100%. That's the goal, is to get all the water filtered. And of course, the opposite happens if you run the pump very fast and filter all the water quickly and then turn the pump off. Then the pool is just sitting there for 16 hours a day without being moved. And that can be bad from a number of standpoints. That anything else blowing into the pool doesn't get filtered. Just floats around the pool, goes to the bottom, whatever. So we don't get any skimmer action. We don't get movement of sanitizer. And this is an important concept, is that if you have bacteria or algae in a spot on the pool, there's some chlorine near it. The chlorine acts on the bacteria or algae, and it may or may not kill it. But because the water is moving, you have more new sanitizer being introduced to where the algae is. If the water is stagnant and not moving, then there's no new sanitizer coming to that organism, and that organism can use up the chlorine that's near it and then not have any new chlorine coming in. So it can flourish because there's no circulation.
Yeah, I know. I just did a quick calculation. If you have a variable speed pump running at 1800 RPMs, it's about 30 gallons per minute. And so that's an 8-hour turnover. And so a lot of times customers complain about setting their pool pump running a long time. But when you have a variable speed pump, you have to run it a long time for it to actually get the water to the pool. The number you gave me was based on like a full speed, single speed pump.
Right. So if you're going to run it, as I said, that the easy way to calculate it is to take 3 times the gallons in the pool and then divide that by whatever your gallons per minute is at that RPM. So as you said, you're running at 36 gallons a minute, and if you had a 15,000 gallon pool, we'd actually have 45,000 gallons. We divide that by 36 and then divide that by 60 and find out that you're going to need nearly 21 hours of runtime to get 3 turnovers.
And that's the key with the variable speed pumps, is that you have to run them longer because they're running slower. And I think that's one thing that people have to understand, is that you need a flow meter too. I like the FlowViz flow meter. That's a good brand meter. But I think with a variable speed pump, it's kind of a must to have some kind of flow meter. I know Pentair has a flow sensor now on their new VS pumps, but I think the flow sensor is important because you're just guessing on the gallons basically without a flow meter.
That's right. And there's really not any easy way to tell. They do have some things called rotometers that you drill a hole in the pipe, and it has a little saddle clamp, and you stick that on there, and it's give or take probably a few gallons per minute, but at least it will give you an idea of what the flow rate is, and that is important. I think more pools should have flow rates on them, even if all you do is put a flow meter right after the pump, right after the filter. You would at least be able to see what the speed is coming out of the filter.
Yeah, I think that's crucial. And speaking of filters, let's talk about how the different filter types affect the water chemistry. So in California, we have a mixture of DE and cartridge filters. Not too many sand filters, but I know like in Florida, Alabama, Texas, Arizona, they have a lot of sand filters that way.
Sure.
Florida is mainly cartridge filters, and they're usually the small single bullet 150 square foot cartridges. So
Right.
how would the filter, size of the filter, type of the filter affect the pool chemistry?
It's important to get the water filtered, so we need 3 turnovers. Each pool is different as to what gets in it, as far as things that are the filtering things that can be filtered out. And each pool is different. You get into things like pollen and sand and stuff like that. Practically any filter will remove sand, but some of the spores and pollen and stuff that gets in the pool may or may not be removed by the filter, depending on what kind of filter you have. There are 3 basic kinds of filter, as you've already touched on. There are sand filters, cartridge filters, and DE filters. And sand filters, in general, will remove particles that are 25 to 30 microns and larger. And a cartridge filter will remove between 8 and 10 microns and particles larger than that. A DE filter will filter down to 1 to 3 microns. So from the filtration standpoint, from worst to best, a DE filter is a 30 times better filter than a sand filter. But better filtration comes at a cost, and to get the water to go through the diatomaceous earth, it needs a bigger pump to push it through that kind of a filter. So it does require a little bit different plumbing and equipment to get it through there. But in any case, DE filter is the best filter we have and will provide the best sparkling, great looking water that you can have. It is super looking. The cartridge filter is the next. And there are some things that you can do to a cartridge filter to make it better. I don't recommend it very often, but you can put a little DE in the water and have it pull into the filter, and then the filter will become a better filter because the DE will essentially clog it up a little bit. So it makes it a better filter, but I believe that the DE probably ends up ruining the polyester, and then you have a problem and don't have a very good life out of the filter. Sand filters are just sand and usually some gravel underneath it. They filter pretty good. You can use a pretty small pump and still get a lot of flow through it because it doesn't trap very much, so the water flows right through it. It's cheaper with a sand filter and a small pump than it is a DE filter and a large pump. But we still need to get the water going through there to get the things out of it that we need to. You can in the case of a sand filter, you can get some other media to put in there. They do make some glass beads and some other glass material that you can put in there. And they claim that that will take a sand filter down to below 10 microns. So it's actually better than a cartridge filter and maybe a little bit worse than a DE filter, but you can have the same flow rate. So it is possible to make that filter better without having to buy a new one, an option. And there are some concerns about diatomaceous earth. The biggest concern is not getting it on you, but getting it in you, and especially in your lungs. And so diatomaceous earth can be a problem because you breathe some of the powder. So it is important that you wear a mask. And of course, lots of people have masks today. So wearing a mask and handling DE shouldn't be a problem because it is a particle. So the particles are big enough that practically any mask will stop it. So
one thing to also know too with DE, Bob, is that especially in California, it's highly regulated, so you really can't hose off a DE filter in your front yard and get it into the gutter. In my area, it ranges from a $10,000 ticket because they don't want the DE going into the sewer system for whatever reason. So that's also another caution with DE, and that's why a lot of builders here just put cartridge filters in and just call it a day.
Right. Yes. You may be restricted by whatever current regulations are in force in your area to use whatever kind of a filter you need, or if it's too much of a pain in the neck to start dealing with DE, go to the next step. Of course, in the DE filter, you can use zeolite as a replacement. It uses the same everything. You just put in the zeolite instead of DE, and zeolite you can put anywhere, so there's no dangers with it. So you can switch to that.
I always say the bigger the better filter. That's true, right? Pretty much in all ranges. Like the bigger filter you get, the better filtration you're gonna have.
Yeah, except that you don't want to get such a big filter that the flow rate with a variable speed pump isn't actually filling up the filter. Especially with a DE filter, it depends on the pressure of the water and the flow of the water to coat the DE over the grids. And if you slow down the water, the DE doesn't get all the way to the top of the grid. And if that's the case, then all you have is water running through the top where there's no DE at all. And that's not a very good filter up there. So you need to make sure that whatever speed you're running your pump, that it is appropriate for the size filter you have.
Yeah, and I think one thing you can do to make sure that it's filling up is open up that air bleeder on top.
That's
And if
right.
water shoots out, then you know it's filling to the top. Otherwise,
Right.
it's running too slow. Really important point, I think, with the variable speed pumps, knowing that you actually have to have that filter filled up to run properly. And, a lot of people are dealing with cloudy pool water, and they always think that it's a chemistry issue. And it can be, of course, no chlorine or combined chlorine in the pool. But it could also be a filtration issue, right?
Well, yeah, cloudy water is one of those detective mystery things in our industry. I actually wrote a paper one time called the 109 Reasons for Cloudy Water. 109 reasons I identified as problems to create cloudy water in a pool. So you can have a really a difficult time trying to clear up the cloudy water. And you know, I get questions all the time. Guy says, "My pool's cloudy. What do you think it is?" You know, that's impossible. You know, it's like going to the doctor and saying, "I don't feel good." You know, and that's all you're going to tell the doctor. You know, so you really need to be a detective to find out what's going on. There's kind of two ways of fixing cloudy water. And one is just to try a couple of things and see if it works. And what you can the easiest things you can do are to superchlorinate and see if that does it. Because it may be that you just have a lot of chloramines, you may have a bunch of soap and sunblock and stuff like that in the pool, and you just need to hit it one time with a lot of chlorine, and it'll all go away. And the next easiest thing to do is either to add a clarifier or add alum, one or the other. And it's simpler, of course, to add a clarifier because a clarifier is just a liquid. You throw a few ounces in a bucket, fill it up with water, pour the bucket in the pool, and leave the pump on and see if it clears up the pool. And so those two things you can do without doing much of anything. Other things involve many other steps. And, you know, of course, the other easiest thing to do is just to drain the pool and fill it back up. You know, with restrictions and time constraints and so on, that may or may not be a problem. But there is a there is a list of things that you may need to consider for draining the pool, and that is if you've added for some reason calcium and sodium bicarb together, calcium increaser and sodium bicarb, or calcium increaser and soda ash. If you add those two things together, they will cloud the pool, they will cause a precipitation, and many times you'll have to drain the pool to fix it. If you have a real high cyanuric acid level, it doesn't necessarily cause cloudiness, but it could be contributing to your problem because when you get real high cyanuric acid, it affects how well your chlorine works. If you have a really high hardness level, you can have cloudy water. If you've used an algicide, especially the type of algicides that they call a quat or a quaternary ammonium amine compound, these usually start out with the word benzene on the front. Benzene, benzalkonium chloride, those kinds of things. Those are quat algicides, and they can cause cloudiness and foaming. You can have a bromine problem that you may need to fix the water. You may have flipped your pool by using a bromine algicide, and now your chlorine, when you put it in the pool, is becoming bromine, and it's not enough for the contamination that's in the pool. You could be using some type of a chlorine-free device or system. You could have overdosed with a clarifier. You could have iron in your water. You could be using an ionizer like a copper silver ionizer. Those cause problems. We used to have problems with Bacquicil, which is called PHMB. Bacquicil is not compatible with anything but its own chemicals. So if you add anything that's not their chemical, it usually clouds the water. If you put a phosphate remover in the pool and you use too much of it, it can cloud the water. If you put in a stain control chemical, it can cloud the water. Detergent can cloud the water. We don't see this too much in pools, but we see it in spas where people wash their bathing suits and don't rinse out all the soap. And then because it's a small body of water, it starts foaming and looking cloudy.
Yeah, so I think that's about 15 of the 109 right there. So
well, yeah, and then there's just the water test,
Yeah.
free chlorine, pH, alkalinity, all those things, get all of those things into either ranges or targets, whatever you're using. And then there are 86 more reasons.
Including the filter and filter problems and run problems and
That's correct.
all kinds of things.
Well,
So
there's
yeah.
disinfection and oxidation, water balance problems, chemical problems, and environmental problems,
Mhm.
where you've got overhanging trees, ashes, dust, cleaning runoff from somebody washing the deck. I had that problem at a big pool. Some maintenance person was washing the deck and rinsing the deck right into the pool. And then you've got equipment problems, and that can be severe. You can even have paint problems, from the paint starting to chalk or delaminate. You've got plaster problems where you've got plaster dust and those kinds of things. So there's a number of things that can cause cloudy water for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk about the problems with dealing with a large pool. So if you do service in Texas or if you have large pools on your account, I'm talking 40,000, 50,000 gallon pools. What would be some of the things to keep in mind when you're dealing with a very large pool, large body of water, almost like a commercial sized pool, but it's in a residential environment?
Well, a large pool is not much different to take care of than a small one, except for the fact that many large pools end up with a compensating large bather load. It becomes important whether or not, if it's a large pool and not used much, then it's not much different than taking care of a small one, really.
Hmm.
The problem is if you've got a big pool and you've got a big bather load, then this pool becomes very close to being a commercial pool and probably should be treated like one. I went to a pool in Nevada, in Lake Havasu, and the guy had a great pool. I went out there and looked at it. I thought, man, this is great. 35,000 gallons. It had a slide and, a beach entry, a zero entry and places to get a suntan and stuff. I thought, man, these are great. I said, well, so what is your problem? And we started discussing his problem. And then his wife said, well, don't forget on Saturdays we have those 25 kids come in here. And I was like, what? And, I mean, yeah, it's 36,000 gallons, but they had 25 kids come Saturday morning and stay in the pool for about 2 or 3 hours. And I
Yeah.
said, you actually have a commercial pool that's not used much. And that's the way to define it. And it creates us a whole new set of problems. And most of it has to do with chlorine and oxidation and making sure you've got a sufficient enough supply of chlorine that it can keep the water safe. And that is your job if you're a service tech. And
Hmm.
even if you're a homeowner, it's your job to protect your family. And if you have 20 kids jump in the pool, I promise you your chlorine is going to go to zero. And so the question becomes, how soon can it, whatever you have, how soon is it going to replace that chlorine? And if you've got an automatic chlorinator, even if it's a chlorine generator, it is not big enough to recover from that very quickly. Between the insult and the recovery, that time period is a time when bathers are not protected. And you have bather to bather transmission. And I'm starting to use this term more and more today, bather to bather transmission. And that means you get in the water, let bacteria into the pool, then I get in the pool, then I get your bacteria. And it never went through the filter. There wasn't much chlorine around, and so it transmitted the disease. And so if there's a residual in there, when you let off bacteria into the pool from you, it kills it. And so we need to make sure on a big pool that whatever the disinfection system is, that it is sufficient to cover the demand, to cover the bather load. You can't have a little chlorinator and have a big bather load. It's just not going to add the chlorine fast enough. And you may have to get the homeowner to help you. If this is a one call a week service and 3 days after you're there, 20 kids jump in the pool, you're not coming back for 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to make sure that the homeowner understands and partners with you about taking care of that pool. Say, listen, I'm going to leave some chlorine, and when your 20 kids jump in the pool, add half of this before they come, and then when they get out, add the other half
Or more.
or more, depending
Yeah.
on how long it was. Those same 20 kids, in 3 hours don't need to go to the bathroom, but you take them to McDonald's and they're in the bathroom all day long. So
Yeah, put two and two together there. I know you can't. You got to be diplomatic with customers sometimes, but yeah,
yeah,
that's true. Now, on the other side, a very small pool. So I've taken over a small pools before. I'm talking 8,000 gallons of water. The chlorine level's at 20 parts per million. The pH is at 7 because they're just over chemicalizing the smaller pools.
yeah.
What do you think about small pools? I know it's hard for pool pros to kind of gauge that sometimes, and we don't really look at a 6,000 gallon pool differently. But there is a big difference between a small body of water than a 20,000 gallon pool.
Sure. And the problem is that when you get to a small gallon pool, when you put a couple of people in it, it can wipe out the chlorine level pretty quickly. And again, we're talking about putting it back, but fortunately, putting it back is also easier because it's a small gallon pool, so you can put it back. But it's conceivable if you come there on Friday and 3 or 4 people get in the pool on Saturday, you could be 6 days without any chlorine. And and I think when you get unusual pools, whether they're big or small, or you've got conditions, environmental conditions, or something that are continually changing the things in the pool, that you need to try to partner with the pool owner and see if they can help you, because if not, you really need to be calling on that pool 2 times a week, and they
Hmm.
probably don't want to pay you to come out there twice a week. And if they don't want to pay you to do that, then they have to take an active part in helping you. And most of it has to do with adding sufficient chlorine. And it can be something as simple as say, listen, I'm going to leave some test strips with you, and all I need you to do is just check the chlorine. And if you get a 0 chlorine, I want you to add this amount of chlorine. Leave it with them or tell them how much to put in. Put in 2 glugs or put in 3 tablespoons or something, and tell them what to put in the pool so that they can cover themselves.
Yeah, I think that's important to note is that, as a pool pro, you're not going to be able to be there all the time. And there's all strange things like we mentioned, bather load and different things that go with the pool. So those are really important points. And I think very important for anyone who's just starting out or dealing with difficult pools that everything is not cookie cutter and cut and dry. There's a lot of differences out there with the service accounts. And I think it's important to note that there's more to pools than just chemistry. You also have to worry about the filtration and aspects like trees around the pool and things like that could cause the pool to turn cloudy. So there's a lot that goes on in a pool besides just balancing the water. And I think Bob Lowry did a great job of going over your pool filtration and how that can affect the water quality or the quality of your pool water. Again, you can learn more about Bob Lowry at pcti.online. And if you're looking for the other podcasts in this series, go to my website, swimmingprolearning.com, and on the banner, you're going to see a podcast icon. Click on that, and you'll see the other episodes that I recorded with Bob Lowry in this series. You can also click on the coaching icon next to that and learn more about the coaching program that I offer. A lot of great benefits for joining the coaching program. You can also learn more at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. Pool Service Pro. Open a Leslie's wholesale account today and receive wholesale pricing on products you use every day. Leslie's Pool Supply offers convenient locations that are open 7 days a week. Another great benefit of opening a Leslie's wholesale account is Leslie's referral program. Get referred to a customer looking for weekly pool service. Save time and money and grow your pool service route and become a Leslie's Pro.